Podcast Network. This episode of the Next Gen in Lodging podcast takes a look at the cutting-edge strategies reshaping hotel marketing. In this episode, host Davonne Reaves and her guests explore the intersection of digital marketing, technology, KPIs, and AI in hospitality, and how they're revolutionizing the way hotels attract and retain customers. Guests in this episode include Kylie Chen from 24/7 Hotels, Jason Pirock representing Springboard Hospitality, and Christos Perakis of Zoottle. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Davonne Reaves. I am one of the co-hosts or 1/3 of Next Gen in Lodging. In my full-time job, I am a hotel owner of 3 hotels across 2 different states, as well as the CEO and founder of Vestor, which is a crowdfunding platform for commercial real estate. And today we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is marketing. So I actually didn't study marketing while I was in school. I'm self-taught when it came to marketing. And so it's starting to become my favorite subject, marketing and hospitality industry. So during my segment, what else would I'm going to do? I'm going to talk about, and it's my birthday month. So I said, I'm going to talk about my favorite subject during my birthday month. So we are going to have a great time. So for the folks who want to learn more about marketing, for the marketing experts who want to, get more ideas, this is the topic and conversation for you. So I'm going to go ahead and so I'm going to do ladies first. So Kylie, introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Hi, thanks. My name is Kylie. I am the Senior Digital Marketing Manager at 24/7 Hotels. I did actually go to school for hospitality management and had a minor in marketing, but I've been in the hospitality industry for about 17 years, not trying to date myself here, but I've worked in various roles within hotel and restaurant space, and I just like you, I love marketing, and digital marketing is kind of my forte now.
Wonderful. Now we have a good friend of mine, Christos Perakis. Did I say it right?
Awesome. Good job.
All this practice. So Christos and I, we met at a hotel conference years ago when I was working a 9-to-5, and he had this really great concept that I still think is great. And it's so great that I'm seeing more and more people popping up like you. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the same. So I don't want to steal your thunder. So let folks know who you are, more about your company and your background when it came to marketing.
Sure. So Christos Perakis, I actually did a 15-year stint at Apple. So I opened Apple's offices in Middle East, Turkey, Israel, managed about $2 billion in revenue, started investing in some startups and kind of fell in love with Zoottle. So left Apple about 10 years ago and have been doing Zoottle ever since. Some days I wake up thinking it's the smartest thing I ever did. Some days I think it's the stupidest thing I ever did, right? Leaving a 9-to-5 job to do your own thing. But so I'm now the co-founder and CEO of Zoottle. So we're a Wi-Fi marketing platform. I'm a digital immigrant, so into this space, I didn't know anything about hospitality, even though I graduated with a marketing and communications degree. I knew nothing about hospitality and learned about hospitality on the fly 9 years ago when we started doing Zoottle day to day. So to me, I'll start off maybe another subject. That one of the things that really excites me about marketing. So after being at Apple 15 years, I think they probably spent a couple $100,000 training each one of us on all these sales methodologies, and there's so many of them out there. And ultimately, I got to the point where you can kind of boil down all the methodologies, and every sales methodology tells you ultimately there's 3 things that are important in sales, right? One is you need to know your product, your service, whatever you have to offer. You need to know your customer, their needs, wants, and expectations. And then probably the most important thing is the ability to put 2 together, right? So that's really the 3 rings of successful sales. And And marketing is that third ring, which to me is probably the most important, and why I'm so excited about talking about it today.
I love it, love it. I love it. All right. And then last but not least, we have Jason Pirock. Please introduce yourself. I know you definitely have a lot of experience when it comes to marketing, and share the world and let folks know who you are. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Jason Pirock, head of marketing for Springboard Hospitality. We own, operate, and develop hotels and restaurants across the country. We've got about 48 in 14 states currently. Big focus in Hawaii and California, but have been making our way further east over the last couple of years. So I oversee all things marketing, brand, and communications for both the Springboard brand as well as all of our properties. I'm one of those, I feel like I'm one of those few that got a degree in marketing and have stayed in marketing my entire career. I feel like there's not a lot of us left. So many people have sort of bounced around, which is pretty cool. But I also don't have a traditional hospitality background either. I started my career in retail. Actually, I started at Target Corporate. I was with Sears Corporate, Brookfield Retail, and then moved into hospitality a little bit later into my career. So I've worked for Hyatt out of their corporate office in Chicago. Most recently, before Springboard, I worked for a boutique hotel company by the name of Imperium Hotel Group. So all cases marketing, and all cases absolutely love hospitality.
Love it, love it. All right. So, like I said, we got some marketing experts. So, we're going to start with the non-traditional, especially since I'm a non-traditional person when it comes to marketing. I mean, in the pathway, self-taught, I didn't go to school, I had to figure out what the 4 Ps, like I didn't know any of that, right? So I'm just like, oh, that's what that means, right? And then trying to find books and, what I can do to learn more about marketing. And so, Christos, you came from the tech space, and Jason, you came from the retail space. So, Christos, I would love to hear, how were you able to bring in your background from the tech space into where you are now, even though it's still a tech company, but what were you able to bring, because you're coming outside of the hotel space, right? So the tech space. So what did you bring to your perspective as far as the hotel industry when it came to marketing?
I'll tell you, when you started asking the question, I kept on drawing a blank in my head. I'm going, okay, what did I bring from that previous industry? Ultimately, to me, again, right, that those 3 rings I talked about, right, they're a standard across every industry, right? So, to me, I think that the thing that I probably came to the conclusion a lot faster because of my experience at Apple is pinpointing the specific decision maker within hospitality, right? People always say hospitality, but hospitality is a huge industry, right? And depending on your product, I mean, if you're selling toiletries, right? Linens, things like that, you're talking to procurement, right? If you're selling security products, you're talking to IT. If you're selling, something like us, maybe that's probably a difficult one. We're talking to both marketing and IT. But I think we probably spent a lot of time and resources, money, trying to sell into the wrong space within hospitality. Luckily, a lot of time is a year. It could have taken us a lot longer. I mean, we hired people that had a lot of contacts in hospitality. But again, they were the wrong kind of contacts, right? They knew the folks for procurement, and that's not our solution. So yeah, ultimately, I think that's where it was. When we were at Apple and we're talking to government officials, trying to figure out which is the government official that can actually, sign that loan, that agreement, that purchase order, and then just being in hospitality and trying to figure out the same thing. So again, I was a little bit of a blank, but I think that's maybe the one thing that I was able to bring over from the non-hospitality space and leverage it here.
A different perspective. Jason, what about you? Because you came from retail. So what kind of like marketing, trends, or even marketing is really fundamental. If you're really good at marketing, it doesn't matter. To Crystal, to your point, you can be in real estate, you can be, in tech, or, even healthcare. As long as you understand marketing and the fundamentals, you can really market in any industry. So Jason, what did you bring over from retail that you didn't really see in the hotel space when it came to marketing?
Well, I think, before I sort of answer that piece, it's sort of, the first thing that sort of came to mind for me was I remember when I said that I wanted to get into hospitality space, having been in retail for a decent amount of years. And I remember, friends and family being like, how are you going to do that? Like that's a pretty big change in industries. And when it comes down to it, if you think about it, there's so many parallels, right? And you talked about fundamentals. I spent a lot of my time in retail and more of the marketing space, specifically within in-store experience. And so much of that is about inspiring, right? About highlighting differentiators. It's about experience. And all of those things translate into the hospitality space, right? And so for me, it was like, well, this is a no-brainer. This is going to be, pretty easy to make that jump, right? Because there's so much that I can pull over. But I think where retail, what I've tried to bring from retail over to hospitality is simplification. I think that in the retail space, especially from an e-commerce perspective, they make it so easy, right? They've reduced friction. They've made it easy to pay. They made it, less clicks to get to conversion. And so that's what I'm always bringing, into the things that I work with my team on, and the strategies that we have. Not only how can we inspire and get people into that conversion funnel, but how do we make it, very easy for them, while realizing that, retail, it might be $20, $50, $100. In the hospitality space, specifically hotels, you're looking at, 200 a night, 300 a night, whatever it may be. So just understanding how do we get them there, get them, confident in the pricing, and then making it very easy to ultimately convert.
I like that. Now, Kylie, think you were in the hotel space, right? And digital marketing, when you came up, digital marketing, and when I mean in the hotel space, you came through it, digital marketing wasn't as big as it is now. Like cause I feel like you and I, we started off in the hotel industry the same time. You was just in marketing. I was just more so in operations. And so, I didn't have Crystal. When I first started at the front desk, I think the iPhone like just came out, and I was like, I'm not paying $600. I mean, I wish I would have guessed it back then, but I was like, I'm not buying an iPhone at $600. Matter of fact, I was with T-Mobile. I couldn't even get an iPhone if I wanted to, because I was with T-Mobile. And so to that point, Kylie, digital marketing, I think matter of fact, Facebook was just starting really coming out when I was in college. And matter of fact, you had to use your college email address in order to join Facebook when it first came out, right? So now that's changed. Anybody can get on Facebook, right? And so now, and at one point, companies and brands, they weren't including digital marketing a part of their marketing budgets. And now it's like, you cannot have any type of marketing strategy, marketing budget without including digital marketing. Like, it's just, even if you hate Facebook, you hate Instagram, you hate TikTok, whatever you hate, it doesn't matter, because it has to be included. Is that fair to say, Kylie? Matter of fact, anybody, that's probably fair to say you have to include it. So since COVID, the hotel guest has changed, right? Who we've targeted has changed. And then Jason, you brought up a point as far as the experience. So Kylie, in your world, when it comes to digital marketing, what have you done post-COVID to create a different experience from a marketing standpoint for existing guests or guests you're trying to attract? I'm curious to hear that.
Yeah, I think post-COVID, we realized that it was more than just having the right rates and availability for travelers to book, we had to kind of expand upon it and make it more of an experience. Especially with, there was a terminology that was going around called revenge travel. So a lot of, travelers were looking to make those trips that they could not make during COVID. So how do we kind of attract them to book a stay at our hotels? While making sure that they are creating these new memories and, reuniting with their family or friends that they haven't seen, for a while. So we, as a company as a whole, we started to look at, creating these local packages and offers tied to the markets that our hotels are in. Making it more of an experience for the guest. And then also revisiting our F&B outlets, in our hotels, because any traveler, one of the things that they really look for as part of their trip is the dining experience. So we started to delve into our restaurant menus, making sure that they incorporate localism, ensuring that we have, set hours, that we're doing happy hour, that we're incorporating even a restaurant experience into our local packages. So that's kind of a way that we've started to market, our hotels post-COVID.
I like that. I like that. Now, I'm going to switch gears. Christo, you talked about Zoottle. I know about Zoottle, but I don't think a lot of people know about Zoottle. So I would love to hear, because that's a part of, I don't know, would it be considered a part of digital marketing? Would it be, no? Is it? Yeah.
It's the gateway of the data. Yeah. So, so, I mean, well, first of all, the funny thing is, not being in hospitality, originally, we came out and we were like the Ginsu knife. It does this, it does a million things, right? So when I think we first met, our pitch was, an hour, right? It does 52 things. And I think over time, we kind of, realized that, again, data-driven decision-making, looking at all our customer base, looking how they're using the data, looking at everything, and then finally saying, okay, what are the top 3 features we should be talking about? And then ultimately, I'd say 9 times out of 10, we only talk about 1 now. So we're a Wi-Fi marketing platform. So when a guest connects to your Wi-Fi, instead of asking them to log in with last name and room number, which is one of the old school login methods that were connected to the PMS, we've simplified that and said, hey, log in any way you want. Facebook, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, we don't care. As long as you connect, though, we're going to get your data. And then we're going to use that data to push it into the CRM, to the PMS, into whatever. Push engagement, push F&B, like Kylie said, right? Really pushing the restaurants, the spa, that kind of stuff. So that's really, first person data and consent. That's the number one thing that we do.
I love it. I love it. And then it sounded like you simplified the process, like what Jason said, right? So coming from the outside space, and then your tech background, I'm sure, help with that, and talking to the customers, talking to the guests. Now that's a disruptor. I like to call it a disruptor because it's something different that the hotel industry wouldn't have. And I see that a lot of times, that a lot of the innovative things that happens within the hotel industry, because I hate to say it, sometimes we just behind the bar when it comes to stuff. There's so many other industries. We're like light years trying to catch up. So, and now the new buzzword is like AI. Everybody's doing AI. I love ChatGPT. Google they put out Gemini with a couple of years. Even I am a Gemini. I touched on it yet, but I really have got fully immersed. So sorry, Google. But Jason, I would love to hear your thoughts, and actually everybody's thoughts, but I'm gonna start with you, Jason. Your thoughts on AI. Some people are nervous. Some people love it when it comes to the hotel industry. What are your thoughts of AI when it comes to, because it's a disruptor, right? It's something new in the space. And I'm hearing more and more people talk about it in the hotel space. Some people are scared and some people are not scared. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
I look at it as like, let's embrace it. And I say that because The way that I'm looking at it is it's ultimately, listen, it's been around for a long time. It's whether, machine learning versus AI versus been called a lot of different things. But I think that, obviously it's had its sort of resurgence more recently, but I ultimately look at it as support, right? I look at it as an extension of what you do in order to be more productive, right? Maybe more efficient. I don't think that it's ultimately, I don't think that it exists to replace humans by any means, but I think that it exists to help us, be smarter, faster, stronger, more intentional. I would say that we're probably more of a novice in terms of how we're using it, or beginner in terms of how we're using it today. Things like, as you said, Chat GPT, whether it's from an SEO perspective or content writing, or, if it's using some of the image creators for stock photography, we might use it for social media captions or hashtag growth, those types of things. But I think beyond that, we haven't really, dove into it as much, just because we've got a lot of other foundational things that we want to leverage it for. But I see it being very powerful, and I think it's an area of opportunity, even at a basic level, that could help the hospitality industry, get more granular with customers, get more personalized, and really use it for conversion.
Now I'm gonna follow up on that. So you said opportunity. Where do you see the opportunity from a marketing standpoint, for AI? Where do you see some opportunities outside of, like you said, the caption writing and content creation? Like, what do you see some opportunities that we could really take advantage of AI?
Well, I think from a sort of to Christos' point, I think there could be some more opportunity from a CRM perspective to be able to, help build out profiles further or capture more of that information. But I also think from on a digital front, just as like a booking concierge, right? Like, almost taking the like the web chat to another level, right? How do you not just about the automated responses and sort of having those scripted speak back to the customer, but how do you truly get them to convert at the end of the day? How is it acting as almost like an online travel agent in a way, to book for you while you're on site? Like, that's where I think that it could go.
Ooh, that sounds like a good idea. Kylie, what about you? What are your thoughts on AI, and especially since you're in the digital marketing space? What are your thoughts on AI when it comes to the hotel space, especially in your role?
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually a bit resistant at first when ChatGPT became very popular. But it does seem like we are kind of moving toward that, and it's about a balancing act between using AI and also kind of having our input. We have seen, obviously, Google move toward this with their search generative experience. So it's not something that we can definitely, avoid. But to Jason and Christos' point, AI within technology is a really good start, especially for hotels and restaurants, kind of merging what our input is from the hotel side of things, and then what AI can kind of fill the gap, so to speak. So we have started to use it a little more in our side of things, in terms of maybe captions, looking to see some of the descriptive content that it can come up with. Sometimes with photos, we will use AI with that for marketing. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how it's evolved very, very quickly in a short period of time.
You mentioned how you were resistant at first. I don't know if you want to share. Why were you resistant at first to AI?
So I'm a 90s baby, and I grew up watching Terminator, iRobot. So I just
I
felt like,
asked.
yeah, these robots are like trying to take our lives, our jobs. So I was resistant.
Okay, that's fair. I asked, I was just curious. So what do you think as far as opportunities in the hotel space or the hospitality space for AI? Like what would you like to see in your role as far as how we can truly benefit from AI?
I think was it Jason that said it, but reporting would be really helpful to have AI kind of assist with that. Right now in hotel marketing, we have to pull from so many different systems and tools that we use on a day-to-day basis that can take up so much time. And if AI can somehow make this more streamlined and easier for us to kind of be more proactive rather than reactive, I think be that would be amazing.
So you mean like more predictive analytics?
Yes, and I think Christos has a point to make on that.
Oh yeah, Chris, I'm coming to you.
So I was going to say that in addition to what we do ourselves, we're actually on the advisory council for two of our larger hospitality customers, and we've helped them build their loyalty programs along with some other partners. I think a couple things, right? Even pre-COVID, everyone was super busy. Then with COVID, there was tons of layoffs, and then a lot of marketers were forced to do multiple jobs, right? And people that were marketers were sales and marketing, or they had to take on multiple properties. So you had to create efficiencies. So what I find with ML/AI, it takes away friction of the technology. It increases efficiency, right? So things where Kylie's mentioning, you have these huge databases, right? You have this idea and you're like, hey, we should send out a marketing campaign to all the mothers that stayed with us last year. Okay, depending on your sophistication, depending on your database, depending on how many other projects you have, that might be a 6-hour ask, right? With AI, if it's properly installed, it's a 10-second process. Create a database or create a mailing list for all mothers that stayed with us last year, right? Again, it's only as good as the origin of the data itself. But yeah, it also helps with trial and error. So you can now not just do that one campaign, you can do 5 campaigns and then figure out which one of those. And again, that's the cool thing, is that you can actually use plain English. Of the 5 marketing campaigns we did, last year, which one gave us the most revenue? Which one had the highest, TrevPAR? Which one had the highest ADR? Whatever you want to tell it, if it's customized, it'll do that within a couple minutes instead of weeks, right? So I think it just gives you much more out of your current staff. You can just get so much more out of it, right?
I think really quick, I wanted to, Christos, you brought up a really good point that I wanted to elaborate on. When you talk about, I think we have the conversations around data, and we have conversations around is your house in order? Do you have, is everything properly set up on your website from a tracking perspective, or sort of how you're doing alt tags, or you're doing, your SEO? All of that matters because it's tying into things like Gemini with Google, or other iterations of that, right? The stronger that your foundation is at home, the better off you're going to be in terms of people figuring out who you are and what you're all about. And it was interesting. I was at a conference at the beginning of April, and someone talked about structured data markup on their website. And that's something that's not as it's, unless you're really into the digital space, you wouldn't necessarily know as much about that topic, but it ties very much into that point of your data, making sure that you have the right descriptions with your images, and you have, the right alt tags in place. Because when I'm on, using Google's AI services and I'm saying, show me hotels that have an ocean view in this city and the rooms are red, right? You're getting that, then it's going to pop up examples of that, right? If you don't have your house in order at home, then you're not going to show up for things like that. So I think it very much goes back to, the making sure data is set up properly, making sure that, frameworks and structure on your website is set up appropriately so that you can reap the rewards of this technology as well and become discoverable.
Oh, Jason, I'm like a sponge for learning. Probably the listeners who are listening, because that's where they're listening, because they're sponge for learners too. You just brought up something that I don't know anything about, and it could be some other folks that know anything about. Going back to what you said about the structured data markup, what is that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if Kylie's more in the weeds on this than I am, but my interpretation of it has a lot to do with your overarching sort of meta strategy, meaning like your title tags, your meta descriptions, your alt tags, your description, those descriptions of those images as well. It's all sort of a part of that structured data markup.
Oh, Kylie, Kylie, do you have anything more to add to that?
I think Jason describes it perfectly. Something that makes me understand it a little better in my brain is it's like, making sure you have your rough draft, your outline on a piece of paper so that Google can understand what your website is showing. That's the way I kind of translate it.
Christo, I see you nodding your head. Did you have something to add to it, or they pretty much?
No, I think it's very important. I think sometimes I think people spend maybe a little too much time just on it as a component. I mean, people forget that there's so many other data sets that they could be pulling from other areas as well, right? So I think, but ultimately, as Jason said, if your ducks are not in order and you're collecting that data, you're not going to put it in the right spot, right? I think that's the most important thing. So yes, everything that Jason said on Google, but I think that should apply everywhere else, right? Whatever data you can collect from Insta, from Facebook, from.
Yeah, and I think to that point, there's not necessarily that silver bullet, right? Because we know that anything digital related as a part of a larger ecosystem. One plays off of the other, one provides momentum for the next. And so I would agree with that. That's just one component, but I think it is a cog in a larger, wheel of things that you should be doing in order to take advantage of, what's out there and what's coming and what's already here.
Christo, you said other data sets. What other data sets should now?
It depends what is important to you, right? So if you can grab, I mean, especially now with Facebook, it's getting a little bit tighter. So you need more of an explicit consent, right, from different tools. But if you can get gender, if you can get age, if you can get zip codes, if you can get where they're coming from, because that's going to allow you to do different type of segmentation, right, and target different people and send different messages. But one thing I really want to, talk about, talking about what we're talking about right now is extremely sophisticated and I love it. But I think at the same time, unfortunately, a huge subset of at least our customers are not that sophisticated, right? So to me, you kind of want to start with the basics, kind of like if you're on a diet, right? I think everyone kind of understands like what if you want to lose weight, you got to burn more calories than you eat, right? And then once you get that down, then you say, okay, well, what kind of calories? So you not only focus on the calories, then you focus on your workouts, and then you figure, you focus on, your rest between sets and all that kind of stuff. The same thing with marketing, right? We have a lot of customers that don't measure the efficiencies of their campaigns, right? And that just drives us nuts and say, well, how do you know if it was a good campaign? And how do you compare it with a different campaign? What if you change a different set? So I think to me, one of the first recommendations is going to be, you got to measure. If you don't, you have to measure It's data-driven decision making. Measure, and make adjustments to the measurement so you can have better results. Not enough people do that, surprisingly. I don't know,
So
Jason, if based on your background, if you or Kylie, if you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, I think yes. The short answer is yes, I've seen that a lot. I think I guess it depends on who you know end up interacting with. We have, being a management company, we work with a lot of different owners. Some are more sophisticated than others. But part of what we do is we take on a lot of acquisitions, and so we inherit tech stacks, right? And quite often, what we're noticing is that there are a lot of discrepancies there in terms of, what type of tracking mechanisms have been put in place, or what type of, whether the appropriate GTMs were set up and turned on, if things are set up appropriately within, the search console or just on the website as a whole. And so I think in that regard, it makes it challenging for us to be able to compare that year over year data, and not to mention throwing in everything that changed with Google Analytics last year. But yeah, sometimes to your point, we're seeing that wasn't a focus. And so, we're the first to bring it to their attention that they need to be, those owners need to be tracking that type of thing. And others, get into the weeds and are looking for more and more data, but it's only as good as sort of the theme of some of our conversations. It's only as good as what you've put in place or what you've set up. And so it's really interesting to see when people aren't focused on that return on their investment, right? And it doesn't even have to be return financially, just return in activity, whether it's traffic or impression share or engagement.
So you all mentioned measure, right? And then Jason, you mentioned hotel owner, and I'm gonna ask this for everybody. I'm gonna start with you first, Kylie. What are the top 3 things that as a hotel owner or as a hotel that we should be measuring or tracking? Because I think that's really important. So I'm gonna start with you first, Kylie.
Yeah, so for us, there's a lot of different measurements. So for website, it's obviously clicks, views, engagement rate. And then for any of our advertising campaigns, we want to know how much are we spending, how many room nights and revenue are we actually generating from these ad campaigns, and then also what is the return on ad spend. When it comes to social media, we're also looking at clicks, impressions, and then if it's a conversion goal, then how many engagements are we getting from the ad that we're running? So there's a lot of different measurements, but to everyone's point, it is kind of something that's been hard to necessarily kind of track and roll up into one area. So we have so many different reports that we pull on a monthly basis, just so that we can at least try to have a baseline to measure success.
Jason, what about you? What are the top 3? What are the top 3 things as an owner, as a hotel, that we should be measuring?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer, only because I think it varies by what your objective is or what you're trying to achieve ultimately. I think there's so many factors that come into play, whether it's attribution windows or models, again, what your strategy is, what you're trying to solve for. I mean, things that I'm, looking at are direct versus OTA contribution. I'm looking at profitability. I'm looking at cost of acquisition. I'm looking at, production of our, booking engine revenue. But again, those are all things that are kind of like playing off of one another. And there's not necessarily, just 3 things that I'm looking for to determine success, because, for example, we could be beating, our forecast from a booking engine perspective, booking engine revenue, but we're or missing it even, but then we're, beating year over year, right? And to me, that could be that we forecasted wrong, right? If we're beating year over year, we're growing. That's a good thing. But if we're missing forecast, is that necessarily a bad thing? How much is it that we're missing it by? And did we ultimately, not forecast appropriately? So I guess I apologize. It's hard to answer that question because it really does kind of vary based off of what you're looking for.
No, that's fair. Krista, what about you? What do you think? Especially because you're advising owners and management companies. So what are the top 3 things that you would recommend?
Honestly, well, I think Jason already covered them all. I think there's one small twist I'd put on one of them, which I honestly don't feel that, at least I haven't met an owner or management company that's spending enough on technology and advertising. I think it's easier for a lot of them many times to just say, hey, we'll let the OTA fill the seats, fill the beds, give them the 20%. For me, the metric, one of the metrics that I like to talk about with our customers is what is that lost OTA revenue, not just the revenue that you're paying them the 20%, but also the fact that they're selling at a lower ADR, right? And take that lost revenue and compare it to your spend on tech and advertising, right? I think those things go right. They go hand in hand, right? It's part of your tech stack. So I think once you can have that kind of a conversation and educate owners on that and realize that, hey, you know what? It's actually much cheaper in the end, right? Your bottom line is going to be much more robust if you spend more on technology and more on advertising than relying on OTAs. So anyways, that's to me the number one thing that I would more focus on out of anything else.
I have one. Oh, go for it, Jason.
I was just going to say that's been a really big hot button for me lately, is just like profitability in general, because I think to your point, Christos, it's like, at the end of the day, we as marketers in hospitality, a very big focus of ours amongst many other things is direct bookings, right? And ultimately, if you're doing it right, your direct booking strategies should be more productive, more efficient, and not to mention you're getting first party data, right? And so it's ultimately more valuable and more profitable than if you're going to the OTAs. And I think that I think part of it is an educational sort of mindset shift, if you will, in terms of, yeah, I get you can get the revenue from the OTAs and you might not see that as an expense from an investment side of things, but it is going to hit your bottom line. You are going to pay those commissions. And why not look at what you're spending in commissions and say, hey, if I shifted a little bit of that money from commissions into my direct booking strategy, we could be that much more profitable. And so anyway, that's been like really top of mind for.
But the trouble with that, to finish your thought, Jason, right, is the fact that with OTAs, it's direct correlation and immediate, whereas tech spend and advertising and many times it's indirect. So again, that's why I keep going back to measure, right? Look at what you're doing, measure, therefore you can justify it. Harder to do, but once you can justify it, then it's maybe a little bit easier to have that conversation and push the needle with owners. Sorry, Kylie, we took up to all the talking on this point. You want to add anything?
No, I agree with both of you. Really great points.
Now, Kylie, I do have a question for you because you're really in the space when it comes to digital marketing, and Christos made a good point as far as the technology. What kind of technology would you like to see? I know how you mentioned before how you wish, we could use AI to make your life easier as far as with the reporting and predictive. But what other technology that you wish that was out there that as the hotel industry to make your job easier, to make us to market, easier? I'm just curious since Christos said the word technology.
Yeah, I think with a lot of the photos that we, capture to sell our hotel and restaurant spaces and making it more accessible to people, it would be nice if there was some sort of technology that kind of could, analyze the photo and kind of do a quick description of what the photo shows, to make it more accessible to those that may not, maybe like hearing impaired, because that is still really important in our space. And sometimes that can be, very time consuming to do. And it's something that really not a lot of people will even know that it's being done, but it does have to be done.
I like that. Good point. Jason or Krista, what about you? What is some technology you wish that you had to make your life easier and make the marketing world easier?
That's not a fair question because I can just build it since it's my company, right? So I think for me, honestly, I shouldn't say that. I don't want any of our customers to be listening to us, right? I just really wish people used more of what's out there today, right? There's so much that you can do if you tie the things together. So for example, if you know that your guest has landed or is somewhere in the vicinity of your property, then you can advertise to them on whatever medium that you want, right? There's no reason why you can't show them an advertisement on Facebook or Instagram to get, imagine they land and they see an advertisement for your hotel, for your restaurant before you even land. Guess what? It's not a wishful thing. It exists. It's just people aren't using it enough. So to me, my wishful thinking is just people use more of what's available.
I like that. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of just wish that things were more seamlessly connected, and maybe we as an industry did a better job of like coming together. I see so many everybody's trying to be sort of everything these days. There's a lot of technology companies that are, claiming to kind of be the the solve for everything, but they're, maybe missing the mark a bit. Maybe they're getting 75% of the way there. And so, I'm all for there being, folks being experts in their space, but the problem is that you end up, having multiple pieces of technology that all don't talk to one another. And there's some up and comers that are trying to solve for that, especially with trying to connect, PMS and POS and starting to build out more, of these robust profiles. But it's still disjointed, and I think it definitely goes back to what Kylie mentioned earlier too. It definitely, it makes it more challenging from a reporting perspective because you're not getting the holistic picture. You've got to go to so many different sources to figure out what that holistic picture is.
I feel like we could go on forever about this topic because we have like a whole bunch of marketing gurus, but I would love for you all to share your information on how folks can, get in contact with you or with your company. Kylie, go first. Where can folks find you or your company?
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. My handle is Chen Kylie, and our website is 247 numerical 247 hotels plural.com. So very easy. Hopefully everyone can remember that.
Jason, what about you? How can folks find you and your company?
Yeah, I spend most of my social media time on LinkedIn. So you can find me at /Jason Pirock. And my company, Springboard Hospitality, we're on LinkedIn as well, or springboardhospitality.com.
I love it. And Christo, how can folks find you and your company?
See, that's what sucks about having a big, long Greek name. So yeah, my LinkedIn link is my entire name. So Christos, Christos, Perakis, Perakis. And my email address is Christos@Zoottle, Zoottle.com.
And he's very responsive. So I appreciate you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to talk about marketing. This has been an exciting conversation. I learned some stuff. So I'm over here taking notes. So I'm sure the folks who are listening were taking notes as well and learning. And I'm sure their wheels were spinning as far as how they can, market their business or their hotel better. We have a monthly podcast, Next Gen Lodging, and myself and Christopher Henry and Omari. We put together this podcast years ago, actually during COVID, because we noticed that the hotel industry or the speakers or the podcast, it was pretty much everyone looked the same. And that's not a true reflection of the hotel industry and the hospitality industry. So we created a space where the next generation of hospitality folks or Next Gen Lodging will come in and talk about what they're experiencing. And because really we're the future, right? The future leaders, and we're in the ground, we're working, as you can see, we're coming up with different ideas on what we could do to make our lives better, to make the hospitality industry better. So I thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you all next month. So thank you, Christo, thank you, Kylie, and thank you, Jason. I appreciate you all so much for tuning in on Next Gen Lodging podcast. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Isaac Colazo, Vice President of Analytics at STR.
Hi, and I'm Jan Freitag, National Director for Hospitality Analytics for the CoStar Group. Tune in to our new show, Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast.
It's a podcast on the global hotel industry, its current trends, what we're thinking about, and where the industry's going.
And we like to have fun with the data too. Find us on hotelnewsnow.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe today.
This episode of the Next Gen in Lodging podcast was recorded on May 13. It was edited by Trevor Simpson. Next Gen in Lodging is part of the Hotel News Now podcast network. Find all hotel industry news at hotelnewsnow.com. Subscribe to this and all Hotel News Now podcasts wherever you like to listen. Just search for Hotel News Now. Thank you.